It's October 2016 and you just released your first major project onto GameJolt. The project was inspired by your favorite point-and-click horror game at the time, Five Nights at Freddy's. The entire Five Nights community had taken a massive uprising of members with the new entry, Sister Location, that had just launched earlier that month. With a ton of anxious fans desperately awaiting a follow-up to their favorite game, they find Jolly. The project you worked on for fun is now being praised as one of the best fan games to date, spawning a whole new sub-community invested in your work. You instantly get to work on a sequel that will surely knock your previous work out of the park. On December 2nd, 2016, you finally release it. Jolly 2. After a 15.5-month hiatus, I finally felt somewhat motivated to finish up my review on Jolly 2. For this extra special occasion, I pulled some homeless guy from a parking lot of a Tim Hortons to help me review Jolly 2. Jolly 2 has been received as somewhat of a mixed bag when it comes to critical acclaim, and I can see why. Jolly 2 was released about a month after its predecessor, so it was hard for players to think that it wasn't rushed. It feels as if Jolly 2 was a dumping ground for all of Ivan's ideas that he didn't get to execute with the first game. The game is all over the place, trying to tell a half-baked story whilst also trying to do something new in terms of gameplay. Ivan even recognized some of these claims by attempting to fix the story by making a third entry, which I'll end up covering eventually. Speaking of the story, let's talk about it. The year is 1985 and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is being shut down. The animatronics are being shipped out as cargo to another location where the animatronics will hopefully be used for good. You, the player, are guarding the cargo. That is about all the exposition you get. Sure, the phone calls do give you a pretty decent explanation of why the animatronics were being shipped out, but nothing too special. Oh yeah, this is the first game in the Jolly series that actually has some story behind it. So, you play as Eric Liam Smith, the dude in the Jolly 3 minigames, and most importantly, Jolly in the third game. When I inevitably review the third installment, I'll go more in depth about Eric. You are on a cargo ship for 6 nights guarding the animatronics. I should probably mention that 4 of them are literally from FNAF. I suppose Jolly's fantasy world is a sister location of Freddy Fazbear's, which is why they're there. Think of this as an alternate reality Five Nights at Freddy's instead of a direct parallel. Eric survives 6 nights but attempts to escape the cargo ship. Eric hides in a spare Jolly suit to get away from security guards and gets spring-trapped. If it wasn't already obvious enough, Jolly 2 takes a lot of inspiration from FNAF. This means a lot of the elements that made those games special are in this one. An example of this is the endings you can get from completing the game. If you beat all the nights and go into the extra menu, there is a secret minigame that you can toggle in the same way as Sister Location did. The minigame has you, the player, in the shoes of Jolly as he hands out burgers to children. If you take a secret path with 1 burger left, you can give it to a little girl. This is Eric's daughter, and she runs up to Jolly because, you know. Purple guy emerges from the shadows and murders your daughter. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense why he would just go out and do that, but it sets it up for a third game. Finishing the minigame unlocks a true ending, giving you another star on the menu and freeing Eric's soul from Jolly. I'm pretty sure Jolly 2's story was made up as Ivan went because we didn't even have that until the very end of the third game. The story is almost an exact retelling of FNAF, but what isn't is the gameplay, so let's get into it. With all the games I've reviewed on the channel, this one, for some reason, is the most fun I've had while playing a fan game. Even with the really simple mechanics, playing each night feels way too fun for me. You sit in an office for 6 hours with 2 doors on your left and right. You can't close any of them, but you can shock enemies, which resets them to their start. The only issue with that is that the door shock takes a while to recharge. To counter this, you can shock an animatronic on the camera they're in, and they'll stay there for a while. This is where some of the strategies come in, making a balance of shocking in the cameras and on the doors. This concept will be discussed more when I talk about mechanics. The second part of each night is the time to sleep minigame, in the style of FNAF 4. It's the same concept, being if you win, you can skip 2 hours to the next night. The general concept is, as the name implies, trying to get some sleep. There is one enemy, and that is Foxy. 2 hallways can lead into your bedroom, and you have to stop Foxy from getting in. You sit in the middle of the room charging your sleep meter, and only run to the door when you hear footsteps. The sound cue is extremely faint, and you end up dying most times you play. I found it easier just to reset and play the entirety of the next night than dealing with it. When you think of a FNAF fan game, graphics are, for sure, one of the last things that come to mind. The baseline games don't do a whole lot in terms of graphics, and there isn't anything exceptional. The graphics in Jolly 2 are the same way. They look fine for a fan game, but aren't terrible. Except for the wither animatronics. I absolutely hate their design. They look like they were made out of fabric and it looks stupid.
Hello, I'm Matthlew, a consistent YouTuber who posts more than every 2 months. I'm not really experienced when it comes to reviews, but SirFiftyFive didn't want to write a whole script, so he invited me into the video. Lazy piece of shit. Jolly 2 is the second game in a series of games that all have great mechanics, but in my opinion, this one is the least polished of them all. At the point in time when the game was released, it had a lot of standards to stand up to, as the first game was a humongous success. Personally, I feel that the game definitely holds up to the first game, but when it comes to all the other games in the series, it doesn't hold up very well. The basics are this: you have 2 doors, each equipped with a shock button, which is used to send away any animatronics. You also have a shock in the cameras, which will shock anything located in the camera you are currently on. All of these have a cooldown, which is where strategy comes into play. If you shock someone in your door and it goes on cooldown, but someone is about to come at the same door, you can use the camera shock to stun them and delay their attack. That brings a good bit of strategy into a game which involves a lot of luck. You can also look behind you, which is where you will find 4 gas pipes. Every once in a while, a pipe will start leaking, and you will have to turn around and fix it. If you don't, you will not be able to use your camera shock. These pipes have a sound cue, which is the sound of steam. These are the basic mechanics, and in these comes my first problem: the gas pipes. Now, the mechanic of having these isn't a bad idea, I just feel it wasn't executed in the best way. First of all, the sound cue is quieter than an ASMR artist. And it can only be faintly heard when you aren't in the cameras. This can make for moments when you're caught up with everything happening on the camera and you don't have time to check the gas pipes, and when you go to use your camera shock, you can't. I'm not saying Ivan G should make the cue louder than the PS2 startup sound effect, but he should at least make it loud enough to be heard. Not only that, but trying to click the hitbox to fix them is like trying to wipe your ass with sandpaper. It's pain. Everything about the pipes was executed so poorly, but the idea itself isn't bad. Another issue I have with the mechanics is the difficulty progression. This game goes from 0 to 100 real fast. Night 1 has 3 animatronics active, which move fairly slow and don't put you into confusing or stressful situations. Night 2 is definitely a step up, but not by much. The animatronics move faster, which can cause some tight situations, but nothing too bad. Then you get to Night 3. Night 3 introduces Freddy, which puts you up against 4 animatronics, and every single one of them think they're Usain Bolt. Every animatronic moves way too fast, and they all attack at the same time. It creates these situations where no matter what you do, you die. If that wasn't bad enough, Night 4 introduces Jolly, who is an annoying female dog. Night 4 is almost impossible, as every animatronic is active and moving way too fast. To make the matters worse, Night 5 is impossible. Every animatronic becomes Sonic and just will not give you a break. The game doesn't progress well and spikes in difficulty between Nights 3 through 5. It doesn't give you enough time to learn the mechanics and create a strategy. By the time you have a strategy, every animatronic wants you dead. It just makes the game tedious to play and ruins the overall enjoyment a bit. Just so you know, I don't in any way dislike the game. In fact, I really like it. These are just some of the problems I have with the game. My final problem is the Foxy minigame, Time to Sleep. More than Mia Khalifa. Foxy is way too aggressive, leaving you no time to rest, and even when you do, the bar takes so long to fill, you have no chance of completing the minigame within the time limit. It just makes the minigames annoying and stupid. The best thing to do is quit the game and reopen it before each minigame, so you can still reach the next night without having to play the minigame. Overall, Jolly 2 is an amazing fan game with some really unique ideas, but it's not the most polished game, which makes it, in my opinion, the worst Jolly game and makes the game more of a chore to play sometimes.
And that's all we really have to say about Jolly 2. I want to thank Matthlew for voicing a part, and he really went into depth about the game's mechanics. I will eventually end up covering Jolly 3, but that will be for another time.